2B Translation Channel. Chapter 30, The Zhou Family's Fate. The entire East Com Prefecture city was currently in a state of panic. Groups of men were sent out to carry out investigations. The Red Rain siblings had managed to flee to their master's house. Zhou Manor. Zhou He sat in the seat of honor with a livid expression. Young Master Zhou Qian's face was pale. Miss Lu told us to flee quickly, so we fled with all our might. Red Rain pulled her brother, Ironborn, and said hurriedly, back then, several people died. Some of the Black Wolf gang members died. The two of us fled in terror, and we came to tell you, Master. You did the right thing. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have known that this little brat had caused such a huge mess. Zhou He looked at his son coldly. How bold of you to get young Master Meng Chuan's help. How dare you not tell me about such a huge matter? Zhou Qian trembled slightly. I never expected this. I really never expected it. Red Rain, our senior brother Meng and the rest still alive? I don't know. Red Rain immediately shook her head. Back then, he and that scion from Jadasun Palace were already heavily injured. We don't know what happened to them after we fled. I hope they're safe and sound, Zhou He said coldly. Otherwise, our Zhou family will be finished. There won't be any hope at all. Dad. Zhou Qian said immediately. It's up to luck now. Otherwise, whether it's the Black Wolf gang, the Bai family, or the Meng family, we'll all be finished if any of them wants to deal with us. Zhou He stood up and said, Zhou Qian. Follow me to Meng Manor immediately. Yes, Zhou Qian said immediately. He was somewhat dazed. And the two of you, Zhou He instructed. If anyone from the imperial court asks you about what happened today, just do as I say. Yes. The siblings obediently listened. Zhou He brought his son to the Mirror Lake Meng Manor. On the way there, they saw troops of soldiers. Brother Zhang, what happened? Zhou He immediately asked the leader of a troop that he was familiar with. Someone from the Skydman sect appeared, and young Master Meng Chuan from the Meng family is still heavily injured. Now, we are searching the entire city, said the leader simply. All right, let's not talk further. I'm in a rush. Brother Zhang, do what you need to do. Zhou He smiled. Dad. Zhou Qian whispered. Young Master Meng Chuan is alive. This is good news. So that person is from the Skydman sect. Zhou He pondered. Let's go. Let's hurry to Meng Manor. Mirror Lake Meng Manor. Meng Chuan leaned against the bed. Although his face was pale, he was in good spirits. Meng Chuan, if you meet a strong opponent that you can't fend off in the future, protect your life first. Fairy Meng sat to his side, leaning on her walking stick as she said. It's nice that you saved Yanjin, but if you were to sacrifice yourself, it's not worth it. You should know that you are the hope of the entire Meng family. You can't afford the loss, and our Meng family can't afford it either. Grand Aunt, the Skydman sect's expert had a powerful body, but he wasn't that fast. I originally had the confidence to escape after saving Yanjin. Who knew his broken fingernail would be so powerful? It severely injured me with one strike. Meng Chuan felt ashamed as well. How many opponents have you really fought? In addition, your opponent's strength far exceeded yours. It's fine even if his attacks fail 10 times because none of you can hurt him. But if you get hit once, you'll be finished. When faced with such a powerful opponent, you shouldn't be hoping to get lucky. Fairy Meng shook her head. Furthermore, the people from the Skydman sect are all human traders. They cultivate with formulas created by the demon race. Their combat tactics are also similar to demons. Their bodies can be cultivated into weapons. In the future, you must be careful. Immediately avoid the Skydman sect if you encounter them. Put as much distance between you and them unless you have the confidence to kill them. Meng Chuan nodded. Yes. At that moment, Meng Dejiang walked in from outside. Dad, how's the situation? Asked Meng Chuan. The Skydman sect disciple fled too quickly. They are now interrogating the Black Wolf gang, said Meng Dejiang. What about the innocent women in Idle Stone Garden? Pressed Meng Chuan. In the battle, 5 Black Wolf Gang members died, and 3 were injured. 6 of the women in Idle Stone Garden were killed, and 2 were injured. By the way, we discovered 38 women locked up in the backyard. Chuaner, you saved quite a number of people, said Meng Dejiang. The Idle Stone Garden has an underground hall. There were many female remains left there. The man from the Skydman sect must have spent a long time cultivating his demonic arts there. Hearing this, Meng Chuan fell silent. He pitied the women who had been killed. His killing intent towards the Skydman sect grew. Master. A servant's voice came from outside. Zhou He brought his son, Zhou Qian, here. He claims he's here to seek forgiveness. Seek forgiveness. Meng Dejiang was puzzled. I'll go take a look. His grandaunt left after staying a while. Meng Chuan rested in bed. His grandaunt had easily removed the demonic aura within him. To god fiends, expelling this bit of demonic aura was a piece of cake. Instead, he required a few days to recover from his physical injuries. This was also thanks to his god fiend body being strong enough. If it were a normal person, it would take several months to recover. Chuaner. Meng Dejiang pushed open the door and walked in. That child who came to you for help had been instructed by a young lad named Zhou Qian. Zhou Qian. Meng Chuan was puzzled. I know him. He's a disciple of our Mirror Lake Deo Academy. I even gave him some sword art pointers today. Meng Dejiang said, Red Rain is his personal maid, and he has a very good relationship with her. He originally wanted to save her but was stopped by his father, Zhou He. That's why he secretly sent that child, Ironborn, to the restaurant to seek your help. That is how everything started. I didn't expect that it was all because of your junior brother from the Deo Academy. I will definitely not let him go off so easily for making my son experience such a disaster. Dad, said Meng Chuan immediately. I'm quite familiar with Zhou Qian. He's quite talented. He didn't intend to harm me. From his point of view, this was trivial to me. The resolution to the Black Wolf Gang incident was indeed straightforward. We encountered the Skydman sect disciple because our luck was terrible. You can't blame junior brother Zhou Qian. Meng Dejiang shook his head, what can I do about you? He had been terrified today. If the old servant hadn't consumed the god blood pill to hold back the Skydman sect expert, his son would have died with Kia. How could Meng Dejiang not be angry with the Zhou family? For every grievance, there is someone responsible for it, urged Meng Chuan immediately. This is a principle you taught me. All right. I can let them off, but I can't let them off easily. After all, he made use of you and didn't even tell you. Meng Dejiang nodded. Zhou He sent a treasure, 1,000-year-old ginseng. It's a treasure worth 10,000 taels, and I accepted it. It can be considered that I've already let the matter rest. That little fellow, Zhou Qian, needs some punishment too. Previously, when Zhou He knelt and apologized, Meng Dejiang couldn't even be bothered to accept it. The Zhou family's business combined was only tens of thousands of taels of silver, and the amount of liquid cash they had was even less. Due to a lucky chance, Zhou He had bought the 1,000-year-old ginseng for his son's mortal shedding realm cultivation. Now that he was using it as an apology gift, Zhou He was afraid that it was not enough. What should I do? What should I do? Zhou He knelt on the ground, with the gift box in front of him. He was covered in a cold sweat. Zhou Qian looked at his father guiltily. Dad, it's all my fault. It's too late to say anything now. He doesn't even accept the apology gift. Young Master Meng's father is clearly still angry at our Zhou family, Zhou He said. At that moment, Meng Dejiang walked into the hall. Elder Meng, Zhou He knelt on the ground and begged. It's my fault for not teaching my son well. You can punish him however you want. My Zhou family will have 0 complaints. Please spare my Zhou family. Since my son has pleaded on your behalf, said Meng Dejiang indifferently, leave that gift. Take your son back and whip him 100 times. Whip him until he bleeds. Let him lie in bed and reflect on himself. Yes, yes. Zhou He was overjoyed. I would have done so even without you saying that. Zhou Qian, thank Elder Meng for sparing your life. Thank you, Elder Meng. Zhou Qian knelt and kowtowed. Leave quickly. Meng Dejiang frowned and waved his hand. Zhou He smiled obsequiously and left with Zhou Qian. Zhou He heaved a sigh of relief when he left Meng Manor. Dad, is our Zhou family all right? Zhou Qian asked. It should be fine. He said he wanted you whipped, but to do it ourselves. Clearly, he doesn't want your life. Zhou He said coldly, you have to thank senior brother Meng a lot. If he hadn't pleaded on your behalf, his father wouldn't have let the matter rest so easily. Chapter 31, People Resonance, 1/2. 8 days later. Mirror Lake Meng Manor. Young Master, Jade-sun Palace sent us a copy of the dossier after they closed the case. Qian Fang carried 12 thick dossiers over. I've brought all of them here. Uncle Qian, tend to your matters. Just leave the dossier here. Meng Chuan nodded. All right. Qian Fang placed the thick dossiers there and left. Meng Chuan picked up the dossier on top and started to read it. It was a brief description of the entire development. The 8-year-old Ironborn wanted to save his sister, so he begged Zhou Qian. Zhou Qian was stopped by his father, Zhou He, and was unable to rescue her in person. Thus, he sent Ironborn to beg his eldest senior brother, Meng Chuan. Meng Chuan, who had a good relationship with Zhou Qian, interfered in this matter. Yan Jin, on the other hand, had intervened out of anger. After Zhou He learned of the matter, he brought his son to Meng Manor to seek forgiveness. Meng Dejiang was furious, but Meng Chuan pleaded on behalf of his junior brother, thus sparing him. In these few sentences, it describes how close my relationship with Zhou Qian is. It's as if it was because of him that I went to save Red Rain. I even pleaded for mercy on his behalf so that father would spare them. Meng Chuan chuckled softly. Zhou He is really smart. He tried his best to hook up with my Meng family, probably because he's afraid that the Bai family would seek revenge. He could completely understand. An ordinary family clan would be terrified when pitted against a god-fiend family like the Bai family. Therefore, they thought up ways to guide the narrative, such as using the siblings' statement, such as Zhou He's answers when interrogated by the Jade-sun Palace. There was no need to lie. As long as the main points changed slightly, outsiders would believe Meng Chuan's relationship with Zhou Qian to be extraordinary. The Bai family would also be fearful, because the person most furious about the situation was Fairy Meng. The Bai family was unwilling to anger the Meng family. No one wished to really fight a god-fiend who only had 6 or 7 years of life left. When they found out that Meng Chuan and Zhou Qian had a close relationship, the Bai family no longer bothered dealing with the Zhou family anymore. Dealing with the Zhou family was not beneficial. It was just to vent their anger. Instead, they might anger Meng Chuan and the Meng family. Hence, the Zhou family managed to escape disaster. The Zhou family's Zhou He does have some tricks up his sleeve. It's just that he's a little sad. Meng Chuan could tell that the Zhou family was facing a dangerous situation. Taking a step forward led to a precipitous cliff, and a step backward a bottomless abyss. The Zhou family couldn't afford to offend any of the parties involved: the Bai family, the Meng family, and the Black Wolf gang. If they were not careful, they would fall to their deaths. According to the dossier, investigations on the Black Wolf gang in Idle Stone Garden revealed 5 people related to the Skydman sect. 3 were captured alive, 1 went missing, and the last committed suicide. According to the 3's separate interrogations, the Black Wolf gang is innocent. Meng Chuan didn't find it odd. There was no need for the Black Wolf gang to collude with the Skydman sect. They would definitely die if they were found out. After all the Black Wolf gang higher UPS were captured, their cultivation was probed. None of them cultivated any demonic arts. After investigations, the Black Wolf gang was determined to be innocent. As the Black Wolf gang had violated the Imperial Court's laws, gang leader Lu Cheng was sentenced to serve at Kinyang Pass in a suicide squad for 3 years. The deputy gang leader, Cang Yu, was sentenced to 10 years of hard labor. As Meng Chuan read, he shook his head gently. The Black Wolf Gang has nothing to do with the Skydman sect, but this thorough investigation discovered several things. The leaders naturally can't escape. The Black Wolf Gang was quite unlucky. There were many hooligans among the lackeys in the gang. Even if the gang strictly abided by the rules, the hooligans under them could still commit all kinds of violations. This time, they had angered the Meng family and Jadasun Palace. Meng Chuan and Yanjin were seriously injured and were nearly killed by the Skydman sect expert. Therefore, the Black Wolf Gang naturally had to take the blame, but the punishment wasn't too severe. These Godfiend family clans can turn their backs at a moment's notice. Even after serving as a loyal dog for so many years, they still threw me under the carriage. Thankfully, I have strength at the Seamless Realm. I was only sentenced to join a suicide squad in Kinyang Pass. Lu Chang had been escorted to Kinyang Pass. Kinyang Pass was only 90 kilometers from East Com Prefecture City, and nearly all mortal soldiers from the city came here. Lu Chang even felt a little relieved. Thankfully, I killed Quan. No one knows that I had long suspected something was wrong with Idle Stone Garden. I managed to escape death. On the way to Kinyang Pass, he was still feeling rather lucky. I'll return in 3 years. Lu Chang turned to glance at East Com Prefecture City. The soldiers escorting him were rather polite. The Black Wolf Gang's leader was an expert at the Seamless Realm after all. Sitting in the training grounds, Meng Chuan flipped through the dossiers about the Bai family. If the Black Wolf Gang was innocent, then the Bai family was even more innocent. However, the Bai family couldn't be completely forgiven since some of their territory had been a lair of the Skydman sect. They were punished severely by Jadasun Palace. The upper echelons of the Black Wolf Gang, as well as the Bai family members in the Black Wolf Gang, were all given sentences. They were also fined 500,000 taels of silver, making the Bai family feel the pinch. And them. Meng Chuan then flipped through other dossiers. Many people were recorded in the dossiers. It recorded the information of the women in Idle Stone Garden. So it's all true. These women already signed indenture contracts. They still have to return to the Black Wolf Gang and receive their training. In the future, they will still have to go to the brothels and whorehouses. Meng Chuan shook his head. The Black Wolf Gang wasn't dismantled. The Bai family arranged for people to take control of the Black Wolf Gang and continue to manage matters. The law protected the indenture contacts the women had signed. Meng Chuan's expression changed as he read. Most of those who were forcefully abducted ended up selling themselves to the gang. Most of those who were abducted by the gang had reasons, just like Red Rain. Her father owed a huge amount of debt. She was taken to cover the debt. Now, she was released. But if the debt was not repaid, what could they do? If they couldn't repay their debts, they would only owe more money due to the interest. They would ultimately be forced to voluntarily sell themselves. For Red Rain's case, the Black Wolf Gang felt fear towards it. They took the initiative to tear the promissory note and write it off. Only then did their family temporarily escape this calamity. However, Red Rain's father was a gambling addict. If a gambler continued gambling, he would eventually end up harming his children. Sometimes, there's no way to save them. As Meng Chuan read the dossier, he seemed to see one woman after another walking towards Idle Stone Garden. How could this be? He felt extremely aggrieved watching this. There was no way to save them, as though they were trapped in a quagmire. Bam. Meng Chuan threw the dossier away and walked out. "Ah Chuan, have you eaten lunch?" Lu Qiu shouted when she saw his back. "I'm going out for a walk." Heading out even at noon. Lu Qiu mumbled before returning to the hall. She ate with Lu Yebai and Meng Dejiang. Meng Dejiang smiled. It's good to let him go out to relax. Meng Chuan was indeed aggrieved. Zhou He's cleverness and cunning earned a smile. He did not sympathize with the Black Wolf Gang's gang leader, Lu Chang. However, the women, especially those who had been abducted and rescued, had no choice but to head towards the quagmire again. How did this world turn out like this? Meng Chuan murmured. Suddenly, he saw a restaurant in front of him. At noon, quite a few guests were sitting inside. Here, try it. Doesn't it smell good? A couple was carrying a child. His father passed the torn white steamed bun to his child, who took a big bite and nodded. It smells good. The couple looked at their son and smiled happily. Both of them were dirty, and their fingers coarse. They clearly did hard labor, but their smiles were very radiant. At this moment, Meng Chuan was stunned by the couple's smiles as they looked at their child. Come have a drink. There were 4 bare-chested men beside the couple. Their skin was glistening with sweat. They held large bowls of alcohol as they chatted loudly. They had completely forgotten about the hardships of their labor. Let's finish eating quickly. We'll go look for your father after we're done eating. An old man was with a girl as he drank some noodle soup. The girl nodded her head, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Yes, let's find Dad. Laughter, chatting voices, and hope in their eyes. Meng Chuan felt his heart lighten significantly after seeing this. Chapter 32, People Resonance, 2 halves. As Meng Chuan walked, he watched street vendors peddling their wares. There were also disciples from the Dao academies talking as they walked side by side. Look, it's Senior Brother Meng. Senior Brother Meng. The disciples from Mirror Lake Dao Academy immediately greeted him respectfully. Along the way, what he saw made him smile. He suddenly saw a crippled old man sitting by the side of the road, leisurely watching the pedestrians on the riverside. Beside him was a fishing pole. He smiled and occasionally inhaled on his smoke pipe. As a brilliant painter, Meng Chuan observed everything with great precision. He could sense the happiness and carefreeness of the crippled old man. Satisfaction overflowed from his body despite being severely handicapped. He was missing one arm and a leg. His disability is so serious, but he can still enjoy life so comfortably. He looks the worst on this street, but he looks the happiest. Meng Chuan walked over curiously. Sir, Meng Chuan walked over and greeted politely. MMM. This crippled old man held the smoke pipe in his single hand and looked over. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. Isn't this young Master Meng Chuan? For you to speak to an old man like me, I have to tell my wife when I get back. The elder's smile was very infectious. Elder, may I know why you're so happy? Is there a joyous occasion? Look, the youths are cultivating their martial arts. The adults are living their lives. The crippled old man pointed at the streets. I'm happy to see all of this. Meng Chuan was slightly stunned. Once upon a time at Kinyang Pass, the demons amassed an army and stormed us under the lead of demon monarchs, said the crippled elder. Once they charged in, the entire East Com prefecture and the surrounding areas were reduced to a scorched land. No one survived. At that time, I was serving at Kinyang Pass. From the god fiends to every soldier. Every one of them fought to the death. The god fiends fought the demon monarchs. We also fended off every demon. Corpses were strewn everywhere, and my companions died one after another. Companions who were chatting and laughing just last night had fallen the next day. As long as they had one last breath, they would drag the demons into an internecine outcome. The old man's eyes were slightly moist as he said with a smile, our eyes turned red from the killing. When you discover no more demons around you, there are also not many of your companions left around you. We managed to survive until the other god fiends' reinforcements arrived, and we finally managed to hold Kinyang Pass. The crippled elder laughed. We managed to protect the lives of more than 10 million people in East Com Prefecture. That time, out of the soldiers which were originally 20,000 strong, only 1,633 soldiers survived. Only 2 of the 5 god fiends who were guarding Kinyang Pass survived. Why did we risk our lives and not escape despite the desperate situation? It's because we don't want to be slaughtered, we don't want our family and children to be slaughtered. We hoped for them to peacefully cultivate, have plenty of alcohol to drink, and brag. We hoped that they would be able to marry and have children in the future. The crippled old man laughed. I come out every day to take a look at the people on the streets, and it reminds me of my fallen companions. Their deaths were worth it. I'm very lucky. 20,000 brothers and sisters, but only 1,633 survived. With me surviving, I can eat meat buns, drink alcohol, fish, and even smoke. Haha. How delightful. The crippled elder laughed. Meng Chuan listened quietly. The confusion in his heart was gone. Some so-called miserable families were laughable when compared to the elderly man. Take the Red Rain siblings, for example. Red Rain was a maidservant in a large family and could earn money to support her family. Her father was addicted to gambling, and who could be blamed for the debt he owed? To say that he had been deceived? Ignoring the possibility of him lying to his son, who was to be blamed for not reading the promissory note carefully. There are all kinds of humans. Some people choose to abandon themselves to vice. Some people remain smiling radiantly even though they are in an abyss. And the vast majority of people. Meng Chuan glanced at the peddlers on the street. They are full of anticipation, busying themselves for their livelihood. After returning home, Meng Chuan ate lunch and went to the study. He spread open a canvas and began painting. He had too many things he wanted to paint. He first drew one of the places in East Com Prefecture. From this day onwards, other than cultivating, he spent the rest of his time painting. He painted every day. From summer to autumn, the painting continued for more than 4 months. As the autumn leaves turned yellow, the painting finally reached completion. This was a long canvas scroll 25 feet long. On the left side of the long scroll was an ancient city, East Com Prefecture City. The most eye-catching thing was the luxurious Meng family ancestral mansion. Inside, an old woman holding a walking stick stood still. Her entire body radiated a dazzling light, and her aura was terrifying. Next to her were the clan leader, third elder, Meng Dejiang, and a large number of clansmen. Meng Chuan drew dozens of people seriously, while the rest of the clansmen were drawn as shadows. Outside the Meng family ancestral mansion, there was the Black Wolf gang leader, Lu Chang, who stood there bowing respectfully. Meng Chuan had never seen Lu Chang before. However, Meng Chuan did some caricature, making Lu Chang appear more robust and fiercer. However, in front of the Meng family ancestral mansion, he was extremely respectful and obsequious. Behind Lu Chang was Zhou He, who was bowing even higher at a deeper angle. Zhou He even gave Lu Chang a fawning smile. His smile was very detailed. Behind Zhou He was the timid Red Rain and Ironborn siblings. The rest of the East Com Prefecture city was filled with many crowds. Several pitiful women were forced to sell their bodies for their families and were crying as they walked towards Idle Stone Garden. There were also dozens of workers working hard. Among them, there were even those who were crippled and were working with only one hand. There were also restaurants, tea houses, noodle shops, and other places. There were street vendors and pedestrians along the road. There were gambling addicts and local ruffians. There was also the crippled one-armed man by the side of the river. Beside him was a fishing rod as he smoked a smoke pipe. He chuckled happily as he looked at the streets beside him. He was situated at the rightmost corner of the scroll, taking in the entire painting. Meng Chuan drew hundreds of East Com city's commoners in this picture. The highlight was the Dao Academy. In the Dao Academy drawn by Meng Chuan, there were children, youths, and teenagers who were cultivating hard. Dean Geu was drinking and giving pointers. The Dao Academy was located on the leftmost side of East Com City, and there was a sun rising beside it. This group of disciples from the Dao Academy represented the rising sun of East Com City, its hope. However, on the rightmost side of Eastern City, outside the city, a group of young men dressed in Dao Academy clothes left East Com City under the watch of their parents and family for another area. On the rightmost side of the entire portrait was a border stained with blood. There was a god fiend and demon monarch fighting. The god fiend was Fairy Meng, and the demon monarch was a snake demon monarch that flew high in the sky. Along the border, countless soldiers were fighting the demons. Most of the soldiers were drawn simply, but some faces were drawn carefully. For example, among the soldiers, there was his father Meng Dejiang Din Geu, clan leader, third elder, Yun Fuan, Lu Chang, Zhou He, Although these people had different identities in East Com Prefecture City, they had a common identity here: human soldiers fighting demons. It's done. After painting the last character, a one-armed warrior stabbing a sword into a demon's head, the warrior was the crippled old man. His gaze was fixed on the demon, but it was as if he was looking at the leftmost part of the painting, the peaceful East Com city. The entire painting conveyed the things Meng Chuan wanted to express. For instance, the Black Wolf Gang's leader, Liu Chang, was afraid of the God-fiend families, but he made some wealthy merchants fear him. He could amass many servants under him with one domineering command, but he had many fears. Meng Dejiang and the others had a high status, but they had also engaged in a bloody battle at the border for years. God-fiends were high and mighty. They were the backbone of humanity. They needed to protect the entire human race. As for the entire painting, there were many ordinary people who were from all walks of life. The women from Idle Stone Garden were just a small selection of countless commoners. Although these ordinary people were weak, they took up the greatest numbers in the painting. They were protected by God-fiends, but they were also the foundation of the human race. Only countless ordinary people over generations could give rise to God-fiends. As a result, the human race never ceased to exist. The entire painting showed all the different people. Even though he had only drawn the tip of the iceberg of the human race, he still revealed the reason for humanity's survival. On the upper right corner of the painting, Meng Chuan wrote two words: people resonance. People. There were many people here: Fairy Meng, Meng Dejiang, Third Elder, Liu Chang, Zhou He, the Crippled Elder, Geu, and so on. The characters were them, and also not them. I'm done painting. Meng Chuan sat on the chair, feeling extremely satisfied. He had always liked painting since he was young. This was because he liked to observe this world. He liked to use his brush to record down what he could see. In the early days, he drew what was on the surface, and they were very vivid. Later on, when he drew Gallant Steed, he could draw the charm of horses. It was as if the horses were alive. Therefore, even those who didn't appreciate art would still feel shocked when they saw the painting. They were willing to pay a high price to buy it. At that time, he was the best artist in East Com Prefecture. And today, he had reached another level. He drew his heart. He drew out the strong emotions in his heart and fused them into the painting. The moment he finished, a great sense of accomplishment and satisfaction filled his heart. People. Meng Chuan closed his eyes and smiled. The immense spiritual satisfaction made his head spin. But he didn't know something was happening in the area between his eyebrows, within his consciousness. A blurry human-shaped soul slowly began to coalesce. In the past 4 months of painting People Resonance, the human-shaped soul had slowly started emitting a spiritual light, causing the human-shaped soul to constantly condense. When the painting was finished, it caused great perfection in his heart. This human-shaped soul was finally able to reach its limits, and with a boom it completely turned corporeal, revealing its true appearance. At this moment, Meng Chuan felt his head spinning. Following that, he saw as though he was cultivating quintessential energy inner sight. His consciousness saw a vast void between his eyebrows. There was a figure standing in this space. It was himself. Support me on https://buymeacoffee.com/2btranslations. 2B Translation Channel. Chapter 33, Transformation. Meng Chuan was shocked. What is this? All I know is that 3 inches below the navel is the Danshan. The Danshan is where one can nurture quintessential energy. Why is there an empty space between my eyebrows? And this little person inside looks exactly the same as me? Meng Chuan was puzzled, but he also had some guesses. Since this little person looks the same as me, could it be the soul of man spoken of in legends? Or is it formed by my mind and will? Or is it something unknown? The manuals in Mirror Lake Deo Academy are distributed from Archean Mountain. My Meng family's manuals have been gathered over 1,000 years. My knowledge of cultivation is pretty complete. I've read all the manuals consisting of general knowledge a long time ago. I've never seen any records about a space between the eyebrows. Meng Chuan was puzzled. He liked to read. And as a child from a God-fiend family clan, he was quite knowledgeable. But even then, he had never heard of a space between the eyebrows. There was even a tiny person hiding inside. Although he was surprised, Meng Chuan had an inkling that this was a good thing. He could already feel entirely new changes occurring in his body. This is such a wonderful feeling. When he closed his eyes, he could still easily avoid the items in the study as he walked. He opened the door with great ease and walked out. He kept his eyes closed and walked to the stone table in the courtyard before sitting on a stone chair. Even when I close my eyes, I can still see everything within 100 feet. Meng Chuan opened his eyes. It was already night, and objects around him looked very blurry under the naked eye. However, at this moment, he could sense everything within 100 feet clearly. He could even see the tiny bristles on an ant's legs while it crawled on a courtyard wall. In every direction, left, right, up, and down, he could see things clearly. However, things became blurry once he exceeded 3 feet below the ground. The naked eye could see ahead, but not behind. If it was pitch black, it would be impossible to see anything. I can see 100 feet clearly. Additionally, I can sense up to half a kilometer around me. Sitting in the yard, he could clearly sense all auras within half a kilometer. The auras of humans and animals, all living beings, could be sensed. For example, his father and Uncle Liu's auras were the strongest in the entire Meng Manor. His father, Meng Dejiang, had an extremely strong aura. Uncle Liu Yebai's aura was more ethereal. The weaker ones were a group of people at the mortal shedding realm. Kia's aura was the purest. In all of Mirror Lake Meng Manor as well as places outside Meng Manor, the further he went, the more blurry it became. Just like in broad daylight, without any obstruction, one could see into the distance with the naked eye. However, one could only see a blurry outline if they were far away. Meng Chuan's sense was the same. He could sense things nearby very clearly. If it was further away, he could only tell how many people and animals there were, which auras were stronger, and which were weaker. That was all. If he exceeded half a kilometer, it would be darkness. He couldn't sense anything. Now, everything in the world looks different. Meng Chuan opened his eyes and looked at the various plants in the yard. The minute details within 100 feet were simply breathtaking. He felt like the things he usually looked at were veiled by fog, blurry. Now, everything was 100 times clearer. The colors he saw were much more vivid. He could now see many tiny, weathered pits on the stone tables that appeared flat and smooth. Previously, if he were to look at hair, he would have found it very smooth and thin. But now, he could see the coarseness of the hair like it was a tree branch, with many rough spots and damaged parts. Everything felt more real. Swoosh. He drew his saber and slashed into the sky. Meng Chuan looked at the strike he delivered and felt excited. In the past, I couldn't see any flaws in a strike, finding it perfect. Now, I can actually see so many imperfections. Meng Chuan muttered. In the past, he had used his naked eye to look at the saber flash. Due to the strike's high speeds, he vaguely caught glimpses of it no matter how strong he was. He thought the saber move was good enough. Now that he could sense it, the saber flash revealed flaws and imperfections. Its trajectory was also 100 times clearer. Every single flaw of the saber art was extremely clear. This allowed Meng Chuan to discover the imperfections of his saber art immediately. As someone obsessed with painting, his pursuit of beauty was instinctual. He was unable to control himself due to the imperfection and disharmony. I'll continue training the saber drawing stance. Meng Chuan began to practice the saber drawing stance. His body transformed into a stream of light as he slashed out with his saber. Only by discovering that it wasn't perfect could he continue to improve. One slash after another. He worked hard to perfect every strike. 2 hours, 4 hours. Meng Chuan didn't feel tired at all. Instead, he was excited. He felt the flaws in his saber art disappearing. Even under his sense, the saber art was slowly being perfected. Swoosh. Another saber drawing stance. The saber beam was like a crescent moon. It stirred the heaven and earth powers slightly, causing the saber beam to flash in a fleeting, dreamlike manner. Meng Chuan's movements were 50% faster than usual. He felt like he was flying, almost as if the wind was lifting him. In a blink of an eye, he could travel more than 30 feet. He stopped in his tracks, but his heart was burning. I sense the existence of force. I'm just a tiny step away from it. Ever since I reached the Unity Realm, I've been slicing apart arrows 8,000 times a day. I've cultivated diligently for more than a year and a half, and today, I finally felt force. I will definitely make a breakthrough in a few days. Meng Chuan felt that tonight was truly wonderful. Every day, he cleaved apart 8,000 flying arrows with the saber drawing stance, seeking to cleave apart the flying arrows earlier and moving the marks on the tree higher. With his feelings being infused into his favorite saber art, and an incomparably robust foundation, the effects of Meng Chuan's cultivation for the 18 months was actually excellent because he had a direction to work towards. It was probably more efficient than the training the ancient god fiend, Deng Feng, had done back in his day. In the past year and a half, he wasn't too far away from comprehending force. Although the closer one was to a bottleneck, the slower one's growth was. Meng Chuan's comprehension of force would be a given if he continued diligently cultivating for another year or so. But tonight's transformation made his saber arts take another step forward and instantly touch force. A breakthrough was naturally much closer. It was still pitch black. It was 15 minutes past 4 in the morning. The Eastcom Prefecture city morning bell sounded. Many people who came to the city for business were already waiting outside the city gates. Rumble. The gates to Eastcom Prefecture city opened. The hawkers who carried their goods entered the city one after another, followed by laborers. At this moment, two figures were amongst the crowd, easily entering the city. The two entered the city, and a fatty wearing a hat chuckled. We haven't been to the prefecture city for half a year. Brother, we must have fun. Living in the mountains was such torture. All right, let's get down to business first. Convert those treasures into banknotes. After we're done with business, we'll have time to have fun. We'll return to the fort after 10 days of fun, said another bearded man. After practicing his saber arts the entire night, Meng Chuan finally stopped. He had cultivated from night to dawn without feeling mentally tired, but he was physically exhausted. He had cultivated for more than 8 hours, and his stomach was rumbling. He first brushed his teeth and washed his face before having breakfast. Gulp. Gulp. Meng Chuan held a huge bowl of porridge and took a few large mouthfuls before leisurely taking a bite of some pastry. When he was done eating 3 large pieces of pastry, his father, Meng Dejiang, walked into the hall and laughed. Chuaner, you are having breakfast rather early today. It's about the same. Meng Chuan nodded and enjoyed the meal. Oh yeah, Dad, I have something to tell you later. You aren't telling me at the meal table? You have to wait till after. Meng Dejiang laughed. You're being mysterious. Meng Chuan smiled and said to a maidservant, another bowl of porridge. Yes, young master. The maidservant immediately left to fill a bowl with porridge. Chapter 34, Visiting Grand Aunt. Tell me, what exactly is the matter? Why are you being so secretive? Meng Dejiang came to the training grounds and sat down. The training grounds were spacious and empty. With nobody near them, there was no fear of eavesdroppers. Dad. Standing there, Meng Chuan pointed at his glabella and asked in a low voice. Have you heard of an empty space in between the eyebrows? Meng Chuan really wanted to figure out what the space between his eyebrows was. If he didn't know a thing, he might one day engage in some sort of forbidden cultivation and suffer. In terms of trust, there was no doubt that Meng Chuan trusted his father the most. There's space between our eyebrows. Meng Dejiang was puzzled. Chuaner, I don't quite understand what you mean. Just like Ardantian, said Meng Chuan. Ardantian is filled with an empty void that can nourish our quintessential energy. It's the same for the space behind the glabella. There's also a space there, and there's even a tiny person hiding inside. I don't know, I've never heard of it. Meng Dejiang shook his head. Chuaner, why did you suddenly ask this? Where did you hear it from? It's not hearsay. Meng Chuan said solemnly, it's because I can inwardly see a space between my eyebrows. The void is vast, and there's a tiny translucent person inside. That person looks identical to me. Meng Dejiang's pupils constricted. How do you feel? Meng Dejiang pressed. Very good, said Meng Chuan. I feel like I have been reborn. When I close my eyes, I can sense everything within 100 feet. I can even clearly sense the presence of ants and the bristles on their legs. Within half a kilometer radius, I can sense the auras of all life. I can even sense the auras of those cats and dogs. You can see everything within 100 feet around you even with your eyes closed. You can sense an area of half a kilometer. Meng Dejiang found it inexplicable. Chuaner, did you obtain some special cultivation formula that you are secretly cultivating? No. Shaking his head, Meng Chuan said, I've never touched any other formulas. After I was done painting yesterday, I felt a little dizzy. Then, I saw the space between my eyebrows through my inner sight. It sounds good, but it might be dangerous. Don't be careless, said Meng Dejiang. Let's go and meet your grand-aunt. Okay. Meng Chuan nodded. Fairy Meng was heavily injured, and she did not have many days left to live. She cared the most about Meng Chuan since he was the Meng family's hope. To use all the family clan's treasures to exchange for a drop of the God-fiend Jade Marrow liquid. And to transfer all the credit she had accumulated to Meng Chuan's name willingly showed how important he was to her. It could be said that for Meng Chuan's sake, she could even sacrifice her life. Meng Dejiang and Meng Chuan trusted her deeply. Inside the ancestral mansion, Grand-aunt greeted Meng Chuan respectfully. Meng Chuan, why are you here? Sitting in the yard, Fairy Meng put down her book and said with a smile, you practice 8,000 repetitions of the saber drawing stance every day. It's rare for you to come to me so early in the morning. Meng Dejiang immediately said, something special happened to Chuaner. Special? Fairy Meng's heart tightened as she asked, what is it? Grand-aunt, I looked at myself inwardly last night and discovered a space between my eyebrows. It's similar to the space in the Danshan. There's a space between my eyebrows, and there's a tiny person inside. It looks exactly like me. Fairy Meng's expression changed slightly. A space between your brows? I've never heard of it before either. Aunt, you haven't heard of it before either. Meng Dejiang was shocked. Fairy Meng had been a god-fiend for about 80 years. She had quite a number of god-fiend friends, so her knowledge was naturally much comprehensive. Yet, Fairy Meng had never heard of the matter regarding the glabella space. It was unbelievable. This meant that it was very rare. Extremely rare. Don't be anxious. Meng Chuan, what changes did you experience after you discovered the space between your eyebrows? Inquired Fairy Meng. Chuaner said that when he closes his eyes, he can clearly see the surrounding 100 feet. Even an ant's legs and the bristles on them can be seen clearly. Furthermore, he can sense all living creatures' auras within half a kilometer, Meng Dejiang explained as Meng Chuan nodded. Close your eyes and see 100 feet. You can sense half a kilometer. Fairy Meng was puzzled. Have you released your quintessential energy? I haven't figured out force yet, so I can't release my quintessential energy, said Meng Chuan. I know you are unable to release your quintessential energy. Fairy Meng shook her head. I'm also good at reconnaissance. I can probe 5 kilometers with a thought, but that's because of my god-fiend body. Furthermore, I can only probe 5 kilometers through a special formula that depends on releasing quintessential energy. As for you, you didn't use any methods to sense aura within half a kilometer of you. I've never seen or heard of it before. Meng Chuan was confused. You can detect my aura? Inquired Fairy Meng. Grand-aunt. Meng Chuan could see Fairy Meng's clothes on the surface with his naked eyes, but when he closed his eyes, he felt like Fairy Meng had become a humanoid son. The terrifying aura made it difficult for him to see her clearly. Grand-aunt, your aura is too strong. I can't see it clearly, said Meng Chuan. However, your aura is stronger than all other living beings' aura within half a kilometer combined. I can sense it, and it's as dazzling as the sun. It's hard to look directly at it, but it's extremely eye-catching. Fairy Meng thought for a moment and softly said, I have never heard of the glabella space, but I've heard of something. Meng Dejiang and Meng Chuan listened carefully. Humans have souls. You should have heard of them, said Fairy Meng. Yes, Meng Chuan and his father tersely answered. The soul's existence was common knowledge. But do you know where the soul is? Asked Fairy Meng. The two shook their heads. I heard from a good friend that a soul is located in the sea of consciousness, said Fairy Meng. A soul takes human form and is identical to one's physical body. Back then, I asked about the whereabouts of the sea of consciousness. Back then, he only pointed at his head and said that he didn't know much about it either. He only knew that this is related to more powerful God-fiend cultivation. The soul is related to even more powerful God-fiend cultivation. Meng Dejiang and Meng Chuan were deep in thought. The space between the eyebrows sounds very similar to the sea of consciousness, said Fairy Meng. It just so happens that this tiny person is also in human form, and identical to your physical body. It might be your soul. Meng Chuan nodded slightly. Of course, this is just my guess, said Fairy Meng. It might be true, or it might be wrong. You can't fully trust me on that. Meng Chuan nodded, but he already felt like he had gained a lot. It turned out that people had seas of consciousness and souls within the sea of consciousness. This was related to more powerful God-fiend cultivation. Both of you have to keep this matter a secret. If it's truly a joyous matter, that will be great. If it's exposed, there might be trouble, said Fairy Meng. That's right, said Meng Dejiang. If there are truly supreme geniuses, the Skydman sect would think of ways to assassinate them. The Skydman sect was selfish and was only concerned about their own interests. However, if a peerless, earth-shaking genius appeared, the demons would reward them if a successful assassination was carried out. This was enough to prompt the Skydman sect into risking their lives to assassinate him. There were ultimately too few geniuses who could be considered earth-shaking, ones that could influence the overall situation between the humans and demons. For people like Mei Yuanzi, the Skydman sect didn't even care. He hadn't even succeeded in passing the initial entrance assessment at Archean Mountain, spelling out clearly what Mei Yuanzi's threat was. If his luck was a little bad, he might die on the battlefield and not even become a god-fiend. A so-called genius like Meng Chuan, who hadn't figured out force, could only be considered dazzling in East Com Prefecture. The demons didn't pay him any attention. All you need to do is keep it a secret and continue your cultivation as per normal. Then, you can enter Archean Mountain, said Fairy Meng. Archean Mountain is the most ancient land of cultivation. Once you enter Archean Mountain and read the books it has, I believe you will know the secrets about the glabella space. Okay. Meng Chuan nodded. That's right. Keep it a secret. Cultivate well, said Meng Dejiang. You should figure out force as soon as possible, said Fairy Meng. The sooner you figure it out, the better. It's best if you can succeed in core condensation. The deeper one's accumulation, the greater the chances of entering Archean Mountain. That Mei Yuanzi gained insight into force at 20. Although he took a gamble, the chances of success were slim. In the end, he failed. You will need to figure out force by the age of 19. Your chances of entering Archean Mountain will increase with an additional year of preparation and robust God-fiend foundation. Meng Chuan really wanted to say that he was confident that he could achieve force within the next few days. But having not achieved it yet, he felt that it would appear as though he was bragging. I'll tell Dad and Grandaunt after I figure out force. Chapter 35, Blood Cloud Bandits. Don't randomly experiment with the glabella space, said Fairy Meng. A random attempt might allow you to discover all sorts of benefits, but it might also bring about an irreversible problem. Leave everything to nature. Meng Chuan nodded. Let nature take its course. In your cultivation, you will naturally be able to grasp a portion of its uses, said Fairy Meng with a smile. This is the safest method. Once you enter Archean Mountain and find manuals regarding it, you will understand how to use it completely. Yes, Grand Aunt, Meng Chuan replied respectfully. This was also the reason why he asked his father and Grand Aunt about this. It was an unknown power. Without the experiences of his predecessors, experimenting on his own would be too dangerous. Now that he had the confidence to grasp force in a short period, there was no need to take the risk. Also, you have to keep the Glabella space a secret. Fairy Meng swept her gaze across the father and son. We definitely can't tell anyone else. Yes, the father and son replied. After visiting his grand aunt, Meng Chuan returned to Mirror Lake Meng Manor and continued with his 8,000 repetitions of the saber drawing stance. In the training grounds, a guard with a crossbow stood on the tree branch and aimed at the ground. As he stood dozens of feet away, Meng Chuan's saber remained inside the scabbard. This feeling is completely different from the past. Meng Chuan could clearly sense the movements of the guard on the tree. The guard first looked at his young master, and the muscles in his hands began to tense up. Then, he pulled the trigger with his finger. During the process of pulling the trigger, Meng Chuan clearly sensed the moment the arrow inside the crossbow was fired. Whoosh! The moment the guard's fingers moved, Meng Chuan's figure flashed. When the flying arrow flew out, a blade beam streaked across the air, hitting the red dot on the arrow shaft. Ah! The guard jumped in fright as the saber beam flew at him. It came very close to the repeating crossbow in his hand. This. The guard was frightened. Even the other guards and servants who were watching were shocked. Had the arrow been sliced the moment it was fired? The distance was too close. Warriors also had reaction times. Average reaction times allowed a flying arrow to fly some distance. This is a prediction. Seeing how shocked the guards were, Meng Chuan casually made up a reason. Ma San shot this crossbow countless times. When I predicted that he would fire the arrow, I immediately attacked. Indeed, the moment the flying arrow flew out, I immediately hit it. Young master, that's amazing. Young master, your prediction is really accurate. Everyone praised him. Meng Chuan smiled. Predictions required rich experience and also some luck. This was because a powerful warrior's actions were blurry under the naked eye. For example, how long would a marrow cleansing guard take to pull the trigger? Besides, with the robe and tree branches concealing him, even if one could vaguely see the guard's actions with the naked eye, it would be too late to act. Meng Chuan was different. He was able to sense everything in an extremely detailed manner. The changes in the guard's gaze and how he prepared to pull the trigger. Everything was extremely clear. There was no need to predict, he could attack the moment he saw it. If that's the case, I'll be able to hit an arrow every time it flies out. It'll be hard for me to train my saber arts. I have to set rules for myself. I have to wait until the arrow is released before attacking. He made up his mind. He had always pursued speed and accuracy when it came to the saber drawing stance. Again, Meng Chuan instructed. Yes. Ma San immediately composed himself. It had been terrifying to see the saber beam fly past him. Swoosh. He fired another flying arrow. Meng Chuan still saw the entire process clearly. However, he only drew his saber and attacked when the arrow was shot out. With his movement technique, the ethereal saber beam had already sliced through the red spot on the arrow shaft. The saber beam landed on the tree trunk wrapped in metal and left a mark. Young master didn't make any predictions. Only then did the guards and servants calm down. This was normal. This was how their young master had attacked in the past when he did 8,000 daily repetitions of the saber drawing stance. He had started his daily repetitions of the saber drawing stance a little later today because he had gone to the ancestral mansion. It would probably be afternoon by the time he finished. East Com Prefecture. At an ordinary residence. A fat man wearing a hat and a bearded man came to the door and knocked on it. The door opened, and a simian-looking man glanced outside. He immediately smiled and said, "Second Lord Zhao, please come in." The bearded man responded tersely. With a smile, the fat man followed behind his second brother. The simian-looking man led the two into the residence and arrived at a hall. Brother Zhao. A silver-haired elder in the hall smiled as he cupped his hands together. A subordinate stood behind him. Have the stewards received all my goods? The bearded man sat down casually, while the fat man sat to his side. We received them. I received the goods in 3 batches. According to the 50% discount, it will be 16,800 taels of silver. Rounding up, it'll be 17,000 taels of silver, said the silver-haired elder with a smile. Brother Zhao, are you satisfied? The bearded man nodded slightly. Those are ordinary goods. I still have a few valuable goods. Please, do tell. The silver-haired elder's eyes lit up. The first one is a jade horse. The bearded man took out a wooden box. When the wooden box was opened, a jade horse placed on its side could be seen. The jade horse was slightly bigger than his palm and was milky white and warm. However, the white jade horse's surface strangely emitted a red luster. This is an ornament that's carved from top-grade jade. It should be something that a god-fiend treasured. It might have been placed on a god-fiend's desk. After spending a long time together, the aura of a god-fiend has already been infused into it. The silver-haired elder nodded slightly. It's not very helpful for cultivation, but it's indeed a rare item. I can give you 5,000 taels of silver for it. 5,500 taels, said the bearded man. All right, as you wish, Brother Zhao. 5,500 taels. The silver-haired elder laughed. Following that were the second, third, and fourth treasures. Together, they cost a total of 20,000 taels of silver. Each item was rare. This is the last item. This is a real treasure, said the bearded man seriously. As he spoke, he took off his coat and robe. He then took out the mysterious item wrapped in cotton cloth. The silver-haired elder observed carefully. The bearded man unwrapped the cotton cloth, and immediately, a rich, domineering aura emanated. A god-fiend aura? Could it be a god-fiend legacy? The silver-haired elder had some guesses, but when he saw the item within, he frowned. It's so small. Why aren't there any words? This was a broken piece of black metal. It was only the size of a palm. Even an ordinary page of a god-fiend legacy would be the size of normal paper. What is this? Asked the silver-haired elder. I don't know. The big bearded man said, this black metal piece doesn't have any words on its surface. It doesn't have any moves. At the same time, it's damaged as well. However, the god-fiend aura it emanates is extremely domineering. It's much stronger than the remnant pages of ordinary god-fiend legacies. Perhaps it's a tiny fragment of a god-fiend weapon, said the silver-haired elder with a smile. I'm willing to offer 3,000 taels. It can't be a weapon. The bearded man shook his head. It's very flat, like a piece of paper. I can't imagine any weapon to have such a fragment. Have you tried accepting the legacy? Asked the silver-haired elder. God-fiend legacies allowed one to immerse themselves within to see the moves of god-fiends. It passed on the legacy through intent. For example, the remnant page of the god-fiend saber art third elder had given Meng Chuan was a legacy passed down through intent. No. The bearded man shook his head. The few seamless realm experts in our fort have tried all methods, but none have worked. Then this isn't a god-fiend legacy, said the silver-haired elder with a smile. Although the god-fiend aura is extremely dense, I won't offer more than 5,000 taels for an item that doesn't have any use even if it's related to god-fiends. 100,000 taels of silver, said the bearded man. Not 1 penny less. 100,000 taels. The silver-haired elder widened his eyes. A true god-fiend legacy's fragmentary page does cost more than 100,000 taels. However, you are unable to accept the legacy at all. You don't even know what it is. Why would you ask for such a high price? Firstly, the Blood Cloud Bandits paid quite a sizable price for this black metal piece. Secondly, given its extremely powerful god-fiend aura, it must be extraordinary, the bearded man said. 100,000 taels was a price set by my elder brother. If you want it, you have to pay 100,000 taels. Wait here. Let me ask my master, said the silver-haired elder as he nodded at his subordinate. All right. The bearded man and the fat man waited patiently. Soon, an elegant man walked over. Brother Zhao. The elegant man smiled as he nodded. At the same time, he glanced at the black metal piece and hesitated. Can I take a look? Sure. The bearded man nodded. The elegant man gently stroked the black metal piece after he held it in hand. After looking at it for a long time, he said, indeed, the aura of a god fiend is extremely strong, but it's very likely a fragment of a powerful god fiend's personal belongings. It might not be of any use at all. I can offer 20,000 taels of silver at most for the gamble. I've already said that it's 100,000 taels, nothing less, said the bearded man. Then there's nothing we can do about that. The elegant man shook his head gently. Sure. The big bearded man nodded with a smile. We will stay in East Com Prefecture for a few days. If you change your mind, you can find us again. You know very well how to find us. All right. The elegant man nodded. This is the 38,000 taels of silver in banknotes that we previously agreed on. The silver-haired elder placed a stack of silver notes there. The bearded man flipped through them after taking them. Each note had a face value of 1,000 taels of silver, so there were a total of 38 notes. It's time for us to leave. There's no need to send us off. The bearded man led the fat man away. The elegant man watched them leave before he frowned, and said, Butler Fang, quickly draw the black metal piece and make it look identical. After you're done, we'll visit the branch master. Yes, the silver-haired elder replied respectfully. The elegant man pondered. The branch master might be able to identify what that treasure is. Support me on https://buymeacoffee.com/2b translations